Good evening. We're back with another Marvel Snap video, and this time we'll be going over the patch notes from the OTA patch on January 18th, 2024, which was one day ago. We'll dive right in. This is going to have a major effect on the meta. Blob has been nerfed. He used to be a 6/4, which had the on reveal merge your deck into this and gain its total power. Ongoing can't be moved. Now is a 6/0, nerfed by 4 power. Has the on reveal merge cards from your deck into this until it gains 15 or more power. What that means is if you're at 14 power as Blob is eating cards and you eat a time stone, which has 1 power, you'll go to 15 and then you'll stop eating cards. If you were to be at 14 power and you eat an infinite, then you'll go to 34 power. So this favors decks which run a lot of big cards and not a lot of small cards. You'll get bigger blobs on average in decks that run large cards. Now, blobs really only run in 2 decks. There's a ramp blob deck and there's a Thanos blob deck. This effectively makes Blob a relatively middling card in Thanos. He's still not going to be bad. A 6 for 15 is pretty good. With a chance to go a little bit higher than that. Every now and then he'll go a lot higher. That's still going to find a slot in Thanos, but it's not going to make Thanos dominant anymore. What do the developers write about this? Blob has been a metagame terror for a good minute. So the only surprising thing is that it includes a text adjustment. The card threatens to create absurd amounts of power, and Shang-Chi and Shadow King have proven wholly inefficient. Well, one of the reasons is that you released a counter to Shang-Chi in Kyera. The latter is a fair bit on us. Yeah. Internally, we feared being so easily dusted by Shadow King would be too punishing for the new card. Okay. So they're just behind the times, really, which has been pretty consistent. They don't keep up with the metagame that much. But anyway, I don't disagree with this blob change, and it seems a pretty good way to change the card, so good job. This does effectively take Thanos out of the meta, at least as a top meta deck. Though it's still decent. Next up we have Destroyer, buffed by 1 power. That's the only change. He used to be 16 power back when the game was released or was in beta. And then he was nerfed to 15 and now he's reverted back to 16. This change is reverting a nerf to Destroyer from a while ago. The general power values in the game have improved even among Series 1 or 2. We'll continue evaluating the relative power of 6 cost cards. So they're experiencing power creep in the game by design, and they're fine with it, and so they're adjusting older cards to compensate. I have no problem with power creep, and so I have no problem with this change to Destroyer. I still don't think he's going to be played a lot, but he'll see a little more play than he used to. Let's see. Next up is Viper. Used to be a 3/4, now a 3/5. We took a conservative approach to adjusting Viper for reasons related specifically to Havoc, which was odd because with the old Viper at 2 power and 3 cost, the Viper Havoc combo really wasn't that good. I don't know why they preemptively thought that it would be. They preemptively nerfed Viper because they thought that the Viper Havoc combo was going to be a meta terror. I really don't think it was going to be. It just shows that they're not that good at predicting how good cards are going to be or how bad cards are going to be. Flaws in their internal testing, maybe the skill of their testers, I'm not sure, but they're just not that good at it. And I do think that when faced with the decision between erring on the side of power or less power for new cards, they're choosing to err on the side of power. And because they're not that good at predicting what cards are going to be good and what are not, they often miss and make things wildly overpowered, and then they nerf them later after people have bought them, which really doesn't sit well with players when you don't get refunds for nerfed cards. Including me. Doesn't sit well with me at all. think it's pretty scummy. So partly because they're just not very good at predicting what's going to be good, and partly because they're trying to make money, I think. But anyway, that helps Viper out a little. I don't think it brings Junk back into the meta. Well, Junk will be better for sure. And Annihilus never really left the meta. I've been running an Annihilus deck a lot, and it's been really good. I think Annihilus probably is one of the strongest meta decks at the moment. Does this make Viper good enough to run an Annihilus? We'll see her more. I don't know that she has a place in the best possible Annihilus deck, though. The nerf to 3 power was a pretty big, or 3 cost was a pretty big deal. But this does improve her. I think she needed to be at 6 power, then she really re-enters the meta in a big way. At 5, it's borderline. We'll see her more, though. Celine changed from a 1-1 to a 1-2. Celine was originally designed to explicitly combo with Viper and Black Widow, which is a part of why her own power was negative. She was designed to combo with Black Widow. How does she combo with Black Widow? You put Black Widow, you put the Widow's Bite in their hand and then reduce its power? Okay. I've actually never had that done to me before. Most often, Celine is used with the goblins. But anyway, it increased the risk-reward of those strong combinations. However, it turns out that the changes to Viper and Black Widow also weakened these combinations, and Annihilus hasn't been much of a factor for Celine either, so we're adding some power. The overall effect is, well, basically no effect. I would say that she's just as powerful before. She was just as powerful before as she is now. No change in her overall power despite increasing in 3 power, because now she doesn't get sent over with Annihilus, and clogging up the opponent's board with Annihilus is worth some power when you're evaluating a card. However, she is more versatile now, because now you don't have to run Annihilus with her. I think before you did have to run Annihilus or Viper, and now you don't have to. Now she can be run with just like Goblins and Renslayer or something like that. So she is more versatile. They were probably unhappy with the sales because she released kind of on the weaker side. I do have Celine. I don't think a Celine deck is going to be top of the meta. I'm not even sure Celine features in the best Annihilus deck or the best Junk deck. Maybe improves Galactus. I don't think it really does improve Galactus at all. Overall, she's about as good as she was before. So if she was on your list of cards to buy before, that probably hasn't changed. If she wasn't, I would not actually consider this a buff for her. So I wouldn't change your evaluation of what cards you want to buy based on this change. Electra has been given 1 additional power. The old Electra, even with 1 power, was one of the best cards in the game when you are in Series 1 and 2 and you haven't yet gotten into the Series 3 cards. Once you get into the Series 3 cards, Electra falls out of the meta pretty quickly. I've seen Electra featured in some Zoo decks. Zoo meaning a deck that runs a lot of low power or low cost cards. And that deck is more viable with Kyera in the game. Is Electra worth running? She'll take out Nebulas, which is really good. Sometimes Nebula will be protected by Kyera. So she's borderline playable now, whereas she wasn't really playable before, so that's an improvement. Dazzler, just given a straight buff from 3 cost to 2 cost with no other changes. Dazzler's another card that could use some shine. Our intention with the initial change to 3 cost was to see if Silver Surfer players would be excited to pair Dazzler with Brood, but things hadn't worked out that way, so it's time to try something else. Dazzler rewards playing efficiently, so you can get all your cards out, which means an energy reduction should be helpful. She gets featured in Zoo decks where she can reliably be like a 2/8, which is pretty good. So yeah, she'll be featured in Zoo decks. Apart from Zoo, I don't see her getting run much. Maybe Thanos runs her, like a Thanos ongoing deck. with Spectrum, she does have an ongoing effect. All you really need to do is fill 2 lanes for her to be good. So maybe you see like a Thanos ongoing deck with Shanna or something like that. So we see more Dazzler. This doesn't really shake up the meta that much. None of these changes to like Electra, Selene, Viper, Destroyer really affect the meta that much. The meta shakeup from this OTA patch comes from the Blob nerf, at least so far. Next up we got Hercules, buffed from a 4-6 to a 4-7. He's still garbage, one of the weakest cards ever released, and the reason why is pretty simple. You'll notice in his description, the first time another card moves here each turn, move it to another location. Well, the opponent can consume that 1 use per turn by moving one of his cards to Hercules' location, such as Viper, which can move every turn, or Phoenix Force, which benefits from moving every turn. So if you don't have initiative, you get no benefit out of Hercules, and in fact, it may benefit your opponent. It needed to say the first time one of your cards moves here each turn, move it to another location. And then it probably needed to be like a 3-6. And then you'd be looking at something good. But it's garbage. Don't buy it. We're seeing consistently that the developers do not like decks that take a lot of skill to play, or that can become very powerful when you have skill. And I think the reason is that it kind of breaks their monetization system if they encourage decks in the meta that take a lot of skill to play. Because consider this, let's say that you can, with great skill, get to rank 1 infinite with a collection level of 3,000, because the card game is designed so that it rewards skill. Well, then what incentive does a player have to buy cards? If they've seen this example, oh, I can get to rank 1 if I just have skill, then what do they need cards for? I think the developers would like your rank to be tied to your collection level. So any deck that rewards skill is probably going to get nerfed. At least that's the pattern that I've seen so far. And Move is probably the highest skill ceiling deck in the game, and so Move is never going to be a meta deck unless it's purely by accident. And rather than erring on the side of a card being overpowered, the developers are going to err on the side of cards being underpowered when they are in the Move archetype, because I think they are scared of that deck becoming good, because then players wouldn't be incentivized to buy other cards. It's only a theory. But anyway, Hercules is terrible. Don't buy him. And last up we have Dagger, changed from a 2-2. When this moves to a location, plus 2 power for each enemy card there. Now a 2-0 when this moves to a location, plus 3 power for each enemy card there. So Dagger can get quite big. I do think there will be a pretty strong deck featuring Dagger. Speaking of move cards, Dagger has been one of the weaker ones for a while. We'd like there to be some extra competition and strength for the archetype, so we're trying a change here that sizably increases the power potential. This does make Dagger weaker to Shadow King, so it's not all upside, but overall it should improve players' options moving forward. It's a good card for Move. It does buff Move some, which was surprising to me for the reasons that I listed when talking about Hercules. I don't think it makes Move the top meta deck, nor do I think it makes it an A tier one, but it's like a solid B tier one. There was already a pretty solid B tier deck though, the Phoenix Force deck. And so now I've seen Dagger included in that deck, but I haven't really seen that much of an increase in the deck's cube rate so far, but we'll see. I do like the change overall. So that's all for now, and thank you for watching.